Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. It's very nice to see you. It's nice to see the room full. I love this title. UNGA session titles can be quite complicated. This one isn't. Investing in education, skills and jobs in the health sector. No one is in this room by mistake. So you're very welcome. Excellencies, ministers, VIPs, actually you're all VIPs because you have shown your commitment to be in this room during a glorious September afternoon in New York. I know you really care about health in your countries, the health workers in your countries, and you're here to do something about it. My name is Femi Oke. I am your moderator for this afternoon. Part of this session will be conducted in Arabic. If you don't speak Arabic, on channel 1 of your device that will be very near to your chair, on channel 1 will be English, on channel 2 will be Arabic, inshallah. Here is the on button at the front. At the side you will find the volume button, and you slide that up and down. And then of course, channel 1 and channel 2, you can go back and forth. So what will be happening this afternoon? We have some keynote speeches. There are 4, so you know you're in a very important room. We will have a discussion and the panel who are really looking at how do we get this done? How is it done right now? Where are the gaps in investing in the health workers and the health force that is ready to take on the challenge of 2030? So you will be able to then speak to them, add your comments, your questions, your suggestions in the latter half of our session. I want to introduce you to 2 very important people. Amelia, stand up. Caitlin, stand up and wave at the audience. I think you need to come here. You are so important. Audience, this is your platform. There we go. To get into the discussion. Thank you very much, ladies. I really appreciate it. If we talk about this investment in the health force and healthcare workers around the world, we talk about it, we take action, it can actually happen. I would love you to be able to, if you have your device that tweets, to talk about this to the rest of the world. When you hear a keynote and there's a line in it that you think that is too good just for the South dining room, I would love you to amplify that message outside of this room. The hashtag you need is invest in health workers. Very simple to get that message outside of this room. We are going to start our program with Mr. Sultan bin Zayed Al Mrieki. He is the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Qatar. Minister, please come to the stage. As he does so, there will be wild applause for him. Very good. He has been in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Qatar for 30 years, so I am convinced that his speech will be excellent. Good afternoon, Mr. Minister.
Thank you. I just want to correct her. It's only 3 years. She's mistaken. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أصحاب السعادة الضيوف الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يطيب لي في بداية أن أحييكم وأرحب بكم جميعا في هذا اللقاء الرفيع المستوى لأتبادل معكم الآراء والأبعاد الإنسانية حول تحدي مؤثر وكبير يواجه العالم. تطلع دولة قطر بدور رائد بالإسهام في تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة على المستويات المحلية والإقليمية والدولية من خلال تقديم الدعم والمساندة الفعالة في مواجهة التحديات والأزمات الإنسانية والاقتصادية، وذلك بالتضامن مع الجهود الدولية التي تهدف لنشر الأمن والسلام وضمان الحياة الكريمة للإنسان. وعليه فإننا نفخر ونقدر اختيار صاحبة السمو الشيخة موزة بنت ناصر حفظها الله من قبل منظمة الأمم المتحدة ضمن 17 مناصرا بارزا عالميا لأهداف التنمية المستدامة. ومن الجدير بالذكر أن دولة قطر تعتبر الدولة الأولى عربيا في دعم منظمات الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الإنسانية، فقد حرصت على تقديم تبرعات ومنح طوعية للعديد من صناديق وبرامج الأمم المتحدة ومنها تمويل منظمات الأمم المتحدة بمبلغ 500 مليون دولار أمريكي، والذي أعلن عنه في ديسمبر الماضي. كما تسهم المؤسسات الاجتماعية والإنسانية والخيرية من منظمات المجتمع المدني في دولة قطر في جهود التنمية المستدامة على المستويين الإقليمي والدولي من خلال توفير الخدمات الأساسية والمساعدات الإنسانية والتعمير والتمويل والتعليم الأساسي وتوفير فرص التدريب والعمل للملايين من البشر في كافة أنحاء العالم، ومنها مؤسسة التعليم فوق الجميع وصندوق قطر للتنمية الذي بلغت مساهماته في السنوات الستة الماضية حوالي 736 مليون دولار أمريكي لدعم قطاع الرعاية الصحية في أفريقيا والشرق الأوسط. كما نشيد بجهود مؤسسة سيلاتك التي دأبت على الاطلاع بدور متميز ونوعي في مجال العمل التنموي والإنساني من خلال التمكين الاقتصادي والاجتماعي للشباب، حيث استطاعت سيلاتك أن توفر فرص عمل وتدريب للشباب العاطلين، بالإضافة إلى تمكين أكثر من 1,300,000 شاب من 17 دولة في منطقة الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا من الحصول على الخدمات المالية. ولقد التزمت سيلاتك بالتعاون مع شركائها بتوفير 5 ملايين فرصة عمل للشباب في جميع أنحاء العالم بنهاية عام 2022. السادة المحترمين، يواجه العالم اليوم تحديات عديدة على كافة الأصعدة بما فيها الاقتصادية والإنسانية والتنموية والاجتماعية، وأنه من المؤسف أن ندرة الوظائف في القطاع الصحي والطبي ذات الجودة العالية والمتاحة للجميع تعد عائقاً أمام توفير الرعاية الصحية للمجتمعات والأفراد، مما قد يترتب عليه آثار وأزمات إنسانية حرجة. وعليه فلا بد من معالجة تحدي الندرة في وظائف القطاع الصحي والمهن الطبية الحيوية، والتي تقدر ب 18 مليون عامل بحلول عام 2030، حتى نتمكن من تحقيق أحد أبرز أهداف التنمية المستدامة. كما أنه لا بد من التركيز على كفاءة المورد البشري في المجالات الصحية والطبية الحيوية ووصوله إلى المستوى النوعي من التعليم والتدريب. وأثمن هنا جهود منظمة الصحة العالمية في سعيها الحثيث للتصدي لهذا التحدي واتخاذها خطوات مدروسة وشاملة، وحشد الاهتمام نحو إيجاد الحلول للتقليل من آثار هذا التحدي آنياً ومعالجته مستقبلياً. وأرحب كثيراً بالتعاون الذي تم بينها وبين مؤسسة سيلاتك في برامج العمل من أجل الصحة، الذي يسعى لتحقيق حوالي 1,900,000 وظيفة في عام 2022 في قارة أفريقيا، والذي بدوره سيسهم في توفير القوى العاملة في قطاع الصحة، وأيضاً سيوفر فرص العمل للشباب والنساء على حد سواء، وسيدفع بعجلة التنمية الاقتصادية. ويرجع هذا إلى أن الصحة تشكل قطاعاً اقتصادياً رئيسياً، وتخلق الوظائف وتضاعف قوى النمو الاقتصادي الشامل، فلدى الصحة ضعف معدل نمو العمالة بين بقية قطاعات الاقتصاد. السيدات والسادة المحترمين، ستواصل دولة قطر العمل كشريك فاعل في المجتمع الدولي لتعزيز وتحقيق الأهداف المنشودة، وفي مقدمتها الأهداف المرتبطة بالعمل الإنساني والتنموي وحقوق الإنسان، ومما لا شك فيه أن علينا أن نعمل جميعاً بجهود موحدة. لذا أدعوكم اليوم أن تحشدوا كل الموارد التي يمكنكم استخدامها للمساعدة في تحديث وتطوير القطاع الاجتماعي والصحي في الدول المحتاجة، فشراكاتنا وجهودنا المشتركة هي المفتاح وحجر الزاوية في هذا الاستثمار. وختاماً، أرجو أن يحقق هذا الاجتماع أهدافه في حشد وتركيز الضوء على أهمية الاستثمار في توفير الكفاءات البشرية في قطاع الصحة، وبالتالي تحقيق الرفاه الإنساني والصحي التي تنشدها أهداف التنمية المستدامة. لكم مني كل الشكر والتقدير، وأتمنى لكم النجاح، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. It has taken me a very long time to find something that the former president of Liberia is bad at. It took me many years. She is terrible at retiring. Really bad. But thankfully for us, that's the case, because she's also the WHO Goodwill Ambassador for the Health Workforce. Her Excellency, President Johnson Sirleaf, please come to the stage. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much. And hear how you invested in your health workforce in Liberia. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Excellency, Honorable Minister, Excellency, Minister of Health from Norway, Excellencies, friends, goodwill, members of the Diplomatic Corps, our talented moderator, Femi, ladies and gentlemen. When I took office in 2006, Liberian children and women were dying of malaria. We had no data or statistics on the disease, and little or no diagnosis capacity at the local level to differentiate from a person with a fever and a person with malaria. My administration had to make informed decisions and meaningful interventions while being virtually in the dark. Today, more than 12 months later, I speak to you not only as a former Liberian president and WHO workforce ambassador, but as one who has lived through the trauma of helplessness as the deafening sirens of ambulances and the heart-breaking cries of a weeping population made it impossible to hold back the tears from the unfolding crisis and the prospect of a looming future of devastation from an enemy we did not know. That was 2014, when Liberia was confronted with Ebola, with the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. The Ebola virus, fueled by weakened in health systems, led to devastating effect, including the loss of over 4,000 of our compatriots, setbacks in health outcomes, the death of nearly 10% of our country's doctors, nurses, and midwives, and a reversal of the positive economic growth trajectory that had been achieved over the past several years. In 2015, with the response and support of global partners, the epidemic was brought under control, commencing with the processes of furthering the research and development of vaccines to support prevention. Additionally, Liberia enacted bold reforms, reinforcing free of charge primary health care and reviving the National Community Health Services policy to recognize the critical role played by community health workers in defeating the virus. We advocated that they should be paid, managed by clinic-based supervisors, such as nurses, and trained more comprehensively in evidence-based services. We strengthen the healthcare system, supporting them, including training, supply chains, logistics, and health information. In 2016, Liberia led a coalition of non-governmental organizations and partners to launch the National Community Health Assistance Program, building upon and expanding last mile health's model, which supported community health workforce to become the first responders to fight the epidemic and deliver healthcare services. With support of key partners, such as the Global Fund, UNICEF, the World Bank, and USAID, the program to date has deployed over 3,500 frontline nurse supervisors and community health workers to some 75% of the remote rural population with primary health care through 2 million patient visits since 2016. The data indicates additionally and positively that community health care workers carry out 30% of the entire country's testing and treatment for malaria, thereby reducing the incidence of the disease in the communities. This is notable progress, no doubt, but we know that we must do more. I recently returned from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where WHO is once again battling the Ebola epidemic, highlighting the importance of long-term investment in resilient health systems that include investment in education of frontline healthcare workers, like nurses, midwives, and community health workers. It is smart investment in human capital that not only delivers more than health outcomes, but as Liberia's experience shows, drives economic opportunities and create jobs, especially for women, youth, and rural communities. Today, we are at a historic moment in the light of a universal health coverage. At the high-level meeting on Monday, September 23rd, all member states, many of you here in this room, will be asked to commit to the priorities and principles of the universal health care outlined in a political declaration. For commitments to be fulfilled, it is necessary to invest in frontline and community health workers and the primary healthcare systems that support them. This requires long-term, innovative financial investments that cover high capital costs. One way to do this is to engage the international financial institutions and philanthropic foundations as key partners to co-invest alongside governments in the education and employment of healthcare workers. The conversation we are having today is a starting point. I would like to thank our co-hosts for initiating this, and I'm encouraged to see the European Investment Bank and the World Bank and Silatech are part of today's panel. Your Excellencies, fellow panelists, colleagues, let's grasp this opportunity. We keep hearing and are reminded that we will be short of 18 million necessary health workers by 2030. Let us be mindful that this would mean that we miss out on 18 million opportunities for economic empowerment and dignified employment. We cannot let this happen. You cannot let this happen. As the World Health Organization Health Workforce Ambassador, I urge us all to call for increased investment in the healthcare workforce and to take action on our declaration beyond the period of the General Assembly. It is the fair thing to do. It is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Madam Salif, don't get off the stage quite yet.
Oh, okay.
I love that big picture. It was inspiring, but sometimes the smaller stories are even better, that you can connect to an actual person or a community. I have no idea what you're about to tell us. I do know it's going to be brief.
Oh.
What is it? What is that personal connection? Help us understand how we go from here and an example of that. You've given us the big picture, given us the policy picture, the reason why, but a personal.
Well, I tell you, in our rural areas, the workers there are on the latter stage of the ladder when it comes to incentives, when it comes to the means of having the knowledge to be able to do the basic of healthcare services. Mm. So certainly, if we had not moved from a militant approach in addressing our problem and recognized the value of those workers out there in rural communities that had nothing, and not being able to train them, being able to respect them, being able to enable them to do the work, I don't think would have been so successful in resolving our problem.
Thank you, Madam Salif. You may now leave the stage. His Excellency Mr. Bent Høie, Minister, please come up here on stage. He is the Minister of Health and Care Services for Norway, and as he walks up the stage, you will applaud him, I know. Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Excellency, Nobel Peace Prize Award winner Madame Shalaf, Excellencies, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. In 2015, we committed to ensuring healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all age. Trained health workers is the key to achieve this goal. But the statistics are alarming. There will be a deficit of 18 million health workers in the world in 2030, according to the WHO. We need to approach this challenge in many ways. We need to work better with health prevention and health promotion. We need to use more technology and to find new models of delivering health services. It is no option to leave people without the care they need because the doctors, nurses, and midwives are not there. We cannot deny humans the opportunity of healthy lives for the simple reason that we do not invest enough in health workers. Well-trained and motivated health workers not only is the most critical element in all health systems around the world, it is also the key factor for countries to be able to reach universal health coverage and leave no one behind. And as we all know, the country with the least resources shoulder have the biggest burden. Only 4% of the global health workers are in the sub-Sahara African. They care for 24% of the global disease burden. This is an unacceptable situation. Whether you see this as a human rights issue, a human dignity issue, or from an economic point of view, the conclusion is the same. We have to invest more in health workers. We must change the narrative. Spending on education and health workers is not a cost. It is an investment with high returns and a driver for well-being and health for all. For inclusion and gender equality, for growth and decent work. In 2016 to 2017, I had the privilege to serve in the Secretary General's Commission on Health, Employment and Economic Growth, co-chaired by the presidents of France and South Africa. We found that investing in health workforce can power economic growth and global security, in addition to the obvious health gains. We estimated the return of investment in health to be 9-1. That's a pretty remarkable figure. I will say it again. A return on investment of 9-1. That should be a convincing argument for any Minister of Finance. The health sector is and will increasingly become an important entry point for women into the formal labor market. Investment in additional health and social workers will directly and indirectly lead to improvements in women's and children's health. By increased job opportunities in health and social work, it will also provide women with opportunities for formal, stable, and productive employment. Inclusion of women in the workforce and business is not only the right thing to do, it is also a smart thing to do. In Norway, women's wide participation in the labor market is the backbone for our society, but also for our economy. Although the primary responsibility for investments rests with governments, the challenges require international cooperation. The code that guides ethical requirements is an example of this. Also, development partners need to continue to support country-led efforts to overcome challenges across multiple sectors. The Global Workforce Alliance served as an important platform for joint engagement and dialogue, especially at global level. This engagement is now continued through the Working for Health program, which Norway supports. I would like to promote a multi-partner trust fund in support of Working for Health, which promotes joint technical support by ILO, WHO, and OECD to strengthen capacity in countries to plan for an improved use of their health personnel. Along with the Qatar-based NGO Silatech, Norway supports this trust fund, which of course is open for others to join. With these words, it's a privilege to turn the floor back to you, Madam Moderator. Thank you very much.
Minister Høie, I loved your speech. Now tell me about something down on the ground that you have seen in the health sector that is really to do with that impact between investing in education, skills and jobs that you've seen as a real personal case that's happened.
I have seen it in my own country. Norway was a poor country in Europe before and after the Second World War. One of the main priorities, not only by the government but also by strong NGOs, was to invest in women and children's health, often done by voluntary health workers and voluntary other women. And actually today, as a Minister of Health, I can still see the results of this in the local community that had these local NGOs working with women's health. Their children is now old, and they are older than the people in the other societies. So I can still see both the healthy but also the economic results of that investment.
Minister Hoyer, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do take a seat. Thank you very much. I am not sure there is anything left for the WHO to say, but I know they will find something. Pete Salama is the Executive Director, Universal Health Coverage and Life Course. Pete, what did we leave out? Finish up our keynote speeches. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Femi. What a pleasure to be here. Mr. Sultan bin Said Al Mouraki, State Minister of Foreign Affairs for Qatar, Ms. Ellen Johnson-Sirleaf, former President of Liberia, and we're very proud to call her our WHO Goodwill Ambassador for the health workforce. Mr. Bent Høie, Minister of Health and Care Services for Norway. It's a pleasure to join you on this critical week for global health in advance of the high-level meeting for universal health coverage and adoption of the political declaration, to discuss how we can generate the necessary investments for domestic and international financing, as well as other sources for education, skills, and jobs. And particularly, we're hoping to construct a partnership between the international finance institutions and technical institutions such as WHO. I'd like to thank our co-hosts, Qatar and Silatech in particular. There are three main messages for the opening segment we wanted to get across. If we're to improve access to quality health services and universal health coverage, we must address the global shortage of 18 million healthcare workers. And if there's one number we've all said and we want you to remember from this session, it's that number. 18 million healthcare workers are the gap. It's perhaps the most graphic example of a market failure today that we have in health, and one of the most graphic examples of a global health inequity. The second message is that investing in education and employment is a smart investment. And it's a smart investment for several reasons. First, because of its health impact. By getting better services, we will have a more productive labour workforce. Secondarily, the economic impact. We have a new generation of knowledge workers here in the making, healthcare workers, which can be at the forefront of the caring economy. And finally, health is a sector that's critical for inclusive growth. We know that 70%, in some professions, more than 90% of healthcare workers are women, and they tend to be young women. The third message is that there is a new consensus, and the consensus is developing across the World Bank, across the IMF, that investing in social services is not just a cost, but it's an investment, and is critical for inclusive growth. Let me expand briefly. Last year, our Director General, who is on his way and caught in traffic on the way from the airport, was made a health workforce ambassador, a human capital ambassador by the World Bank, really implying that the World Bank now sees human capital as a key priority, investing in education, health, and other skills. In addition, we know that ensuring community maintains its health and well-being is a must for investment, and the critical element of that is the skills of the health worker. So it's a relatively simple equation. Growing demand from a growing population for quality health care requires more investment in health and more investment in the health workforce. Particularly as we think about universal health coverage, we're also focusing on primary health care, and that has implications for the constituency of the health workforce, which must focus on PHC. The political declaration does express its concern on the global shortage of 18 million healthcare workers, and we must acknowledge that that's most severe in lower income and middle income countries. It's been mentioned that one of the great inequities is that where the disease burden is the highest in sub-Saharan Africa, we have the lowest density of the health workforce. In sub-Saharan Africa, we estimate that we will need 6 million new healthcare workers to meet SDG number 3. Every job we create in health has an impact beyond health, however, and we estimate that 2 to 3 additional jobs will be created for every single job in health. That means for Africa, we can create 20 million new jobs that will go mostly to women and to youth. So the high-level meeting represents a critical and opportune moment. We will never have greater political momentum on UHC and greater opportunity to connect UHC with the social spending agenda. As I've mentioned, the IMF is focused on social spending, spending in education, health, and social protection. It now believes that social spending is a key policy lever for promoting inclusive growth, addressing inequality, and protecting vulnerable groups. It's central, in effect, to leaving no one behind. We must therefore capitalize on the political momentum for UHC and think about the concrete actions that we will take together. I'm very much hoping, for example, that out of this event and the ensuing conversations, we're able to construct a financial instrument to invest more than $1 billion in available capital for the health workforce agenda. It's an exciting prospect. We're already working with the European Investment Bank. We hope to work with the World Bank and others, as well as Qatar and the colleagues here today. And it's this type of scale of investment that we need in order to make progress and reach our UHC goals. Thank you very much.
Not so fast, Pete. Come back on the stage. You are doing double duty today. Pick a chair with your name on it and sit on it. Fantastic. Panel, you're very welcome. Come and sit on the stage. We're going to make you work. Thank you very much. Making it easier will be rapturous applause from the audience. Even more rapturous applause than that. And then about another 10 seconds and we're almost there. Very good. Okay, so 2030, can you believe it's in 11 years' time? So if we are going to have enough health force workers, there's about an 18 million gap. How do you fill that gap? Some of the expertise for filling the gap is right here on the stage. Really good to see you. From the World Bank, Dr. Mohammed Ali Pat. From the World Bank, that pretty much sums up what you're doing on the stage, but your mission today is what?
To really link this idea of investing in health, human resources, to not only improvement in health in countries through the primary healthcare systems and wider health system, but also to wider economic agenda. That better health leads to better growth and will lead to poverty reduction, and it's just good all round for the economies, but also for the health sector specifically.
Well, you're very welcome, and you can stay on the stage. I like that premise. Pete, I'm going to give you a little bit of a break, but also it is so nice to have with us Mrs. Sabah Ismail Al-Hajjus from Silatech, and for you, the reason for being on the stage is very important. I'm just going to ask you just briefly, because we'll dig into it a little bit deeper. And also one of the reasons we're here is because the WHO, Silatech, and also Qatar are supporting and funding and holding this very event. So being on the stage today is important because why?
سوف يكون مدخلي للإجابة لهذا السؤال خضرة، يعني سأستدعي قصة خضرة، الفتاة الصومالية التي أصابت قريتها الجفاف نتيجة التغيرات المناخية والتصحر وأيضا القتال الداخلي الذي كان يدور داخل الصومال. اسمحوا لي من خلالها أن تكون إجابتي على السؤال. خضرة بعد أن أصابت قريتها التصحر أصبح ليس لديها أي دخل أو رزق تصرف منه على أسرتها، وبالتالي اضطرت أن تلجأ إلى قرية أخرى. هذه القرية تعمل في الصيد وهي ليست لديها أي مهارة في الصيد، ولم تستطيع أن تستكمل حياتها في هذه القرية، وكانوا على وشك الموت بحيث لأنهم لا يجدوا مصدر رزق ولا تعليم ولا صحة. استطعنا أن نصل إلى خضرة ونمدها بمهارات الصيد وكيفية تغليف السمك وتعليبه، وبهذه الطريقة استطعنا أن نوصل خضرة إلى أو نوصل لها بالأمل. وبالتالي هذا هو دورنا، أو لماذا نحن هنا؟ نحن هنا لأننا نسعى للوصول بالأمل إلى الشباب المهمش من خلال التمكين الاقتصادي والاجتماعي، وليس الشباب فقط ولكن النساء، وسوف أتي للنساء في إجابة أخرى إن شاء الله.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Ambroise Foyoy is the Vice President of the European Investment Bank. When I say that title, it's pretty obvious what you're doing here. You're very welcome. But what is your mission? What do you want to do on the stage in this conversation?
Well, what I would like to do today, and thanks for the invitation, is first to show the importance of partnerships. We'll never be successful if we act alone. And the second one is, and I say that because we are strengthening quite a lot of our partnership with the World Health Organization. And the second thing is to show that if we want to be successful, we'll need to take into account everything that relates to innovation in the way we finance things, in the way we are funding activity in the health sector, the role of digital economy in helping the health medical system, these kind of things. It's a variety of, there is not one solution that's going to help us to fill the gap that the World Health Organization, that Pete and President Johnson Sirleaf spoke about.
Let's talk about evidence, first of all. There was a statistic that jumped out at me during the keynotes, and that was Minister Hoyer saying there was a 9-to-1 return. That's exceptional for ministers of finance. He said, well, that's pretty impressive. I'm just thinking, Mohammed, evidence. What evidence would you present to us that helps us understand that link between investing in a health force?
To specifically link investing broadly in health.
Oh, can you start that sentence one more
Yes.
time? We just lost the first few words. Go ahead.
So recent work by the bank showed that 60% of the children that are living today will not achieve the optimal productivity in their lives because of lack of health and lack of education. To achieve that, you need to have the services, and that is dependent on the health workforce. So there's a return on the wider economy of those countries of getting better health, better education. But employment in health itself is a major component of many national economies. In the OECD, 1 in 10 jobs are in the health sector. Growth in health employment exceeds most other sectors in the United States and in many other countries. So there's a whole value chain around it, and the return that the minister was talking about is really linked to health workforce across the value chain, from training, service delivery, other elements that are necessary to deliver the services that have a potential effect on the wider economy.
Boyce, go ahead.
I would just add 2 points, and you're absolutely right in stressing this is the positive way. There is also the negative way, which is look at the negative impact of epidemics on the economy. And the more you avoid by helping the health situation and systems to improve, the better you avoid also the negative consequences on growth. And you need to prepare for the next epidemics or problems. We are working with the World Health Organization on AMR. AMR is the antimicrobial resistance. We know that there is a very interesting study by the British government that was 2 years ago, that in 2050, if we don't make progress on AMR, there will be more death by antimicrobial resistance than by cancer. So it's also a way that we need to prepare. It's not only that there are positive effects of the the health system for the economy, it's also that we need to avoid negative impact.
Saba, I know you were wanting to talk about women and girls because they make up such a big area of the health sector. And when we're looking at evidence, what are the potential returns here if we spend time to put and money to put into education and skills and jobs? What would you say from your experience?
سؤال جيد. طبعا يعني يمكن زملائي عندهم أموال كثيرة، ولكن نحن كمؤسسة يعني تعتمد على كمحرك كاتاليست. المؤسسة كاتاليست تقوم على حشد الأموال، وبالتالي نحن نأخذ منهم حتى نستطيع تأدية برامجنا أو إقامة برامجنا ومهامنا. من المهم جدا مبدئيا أن نحدد هل هناك عائد على البرامج التنموية الإنسانية فقط وإلا هناك عائد آخر على المؤسسات المانحة. وعندما نتكلم عن المؤسسات المانحة هناك مؤسسات دولية مثل البنك الدولي، وهناك مؤسسات استثمارية مثل بنك أوروبا الاستثماري، وهناك دول مانحة كما أشار سعادة الوزير سعادة السيد سلطان أن هناك دول مانحة مثل قطر التي هي تعتبر من المساهمين الرئيسيين في برامج مؤسسة سيلاتك. وهناك أيضا القطاع الخاص، كل من هؤلاء له أجندته الخاصة، أهدافه الخاصة. منهم من يقدم المنح والمساعدات للقضايا الإنسانية والقيمية وإقامة المجتمعات التي لديها استدامة في الحياة الكريمة، ومنهم من يقدم من أجل استثمارات طويلة الأمد. فكيف للاستثمار أن يقوم في منطقة هي مدمرة أو منطقة هشة أو منطقة فيها قتال أو منطقة ليس فيها بنية تحتية؟ وهذا ما تقوم به المؤسسات التنموية مثل مؤسسة سيلاتك التي هي تعد المجتمعات إنسانيا وتنمويا حتى يستطيع المستثمرون استكمال استثماراتهم. وأعود للنقطة التي ذكرها وزير الصحة النرويجي حول كم الاستثمار العائد من الاستثمارات الصحية، وهذا صحيح، وإحنا لمسناه في برنامج العمل من أجل الصحة أن هذا البرنامج وجهة نظرنا فيه نحن أنه هو لبناء القدرات والقوى العاملة، ولكن من ناحية أخرى هو استثمار للمانحين، لأن في بناء المستشفيات والمراكز الصحية هناك عائد استثماري يعود لهؤلاء المانحين. فالعملية هي عملية تبادلية، الأثر أو العائد يعود على المؤسسات التنموية والمجتمعات، وأيضا هو عائد على المؤسسات الدولية المالية أو المانحين.
So Pete, what I'm wondering is, where are you seeing this investment happening right now? Where are you seeing and you're thinking, that is amazing, that's a good model, that can help us?
So the real market failure here, Femi, is that there are 40 million jobs that are going to be created in the healthcare workforce over the world by 2030. The problem is the 18 million deficit will be in the countries that need the jobs the most, where the burden is the highest. So what we want to see now is the increase in healthcare numbers coming in those countries. Now, it's starting in some countries, and certainly we have great models such as Rwanda and Ethiopia that have put literally tens of thousands of basic community healthcare workers on their payrolls. We want to see more of that. We also want to see more nurses. And as we invest further in primary healthcare, that lower level of healthcare worker is going to be the critical one, those cadres who are working at community level. Through the Working for Health program that we spoke about recently, we've also seen some really interesting potential pilot programs. So in Guinea and Niger, for example, with relatively small catalytic investments, we're talking about a few $100,000, we are now seeing other development partners coming to the table to work with those governments, and we're literally ending up with many more millions of healthcare workers projected. And that's quite critical because if we're going to get rural services out to the periphery, we can't do it with that cadre of workers. So we want to find more models like Guinea and Niger that are moving in the direction of healthcare workers nationally available to all who matter.
Saba, I know you want to say something, and then Mohammed, go ahead. Saba, you start.
أنا أود أضيف إضافة بسيطة لما ذكره زميل في WHO. سوف أذكر بعض الإحصائيات التي قد تعطي بعدا للقضية التي نناقشها أو التحدي الذي نناقشه الآن. هذه الإحصائيات هي من الجمعية اليمنية للصحة الإنجابية في عام 2018، ونحن نعلم ما اليمن والمأساة الإنسانية الموجودة حاليا بها، ومن المهم جدا أن تكون هي أحد الدول التي لا بد أن نتعرض لها في كل نقاشاتنا التي نناقشها حول التحديات، لأن اليمن المعاناة التي فيها لابد أن لا نغفلها في أي تحدي من التحديات المذكورة خلال اجتماعات تتداول في الأمم المتحدة. عدد الوفيات للأمهات في اليمن 3600 سنويا بمعدل 10 حالات يوميا. 520,000.
So Sava, I'm going to keep us on track here because we're talking about the expansion of a health force, and of course it's important in Yemen, but I want to keep us on track in terms of what we're doing here today. So I'm going to park that for a moment because we have a whole week to talk about the politics of different countries.
Yeah,
etc.
but this is not politics. This is because we need to know. I'm sorry in English.
No, I understand where
yes.
you're going, but I want to actually look at at this point, we're looking at the evidence for the investment in healthcare force.
But I think this is
and
important.
I feel that you're taking us on a different track. So hold tight for a moment, because I want to keep us on track here. Mohammed, young people are going to be so important in this. If we're looking at the expansion and also looking at more education, jobs, of course, for young people, what evidence do you have from the World Bank and the programs that they're doing, or you would love to do, where young people are really going to benefit?
Just to ride on the back of the comment on the returns. Beyond the economic returns, there is also the social return, particularly in terms of empowerment of women. Most of the women, of the workers that we're talking about that will be needed to drive the primary healthcare systems, many of them will be women. And there is the empowerment in many areas in the Sahel, in Nigeria, in Somalia, that having them employed itself gives an example for other young girls to go to school, to stay longer in school, and that itself is a very valuable attribute for why governments and all of us, including philanthropists, must invest in it. From the bank side, I think the human capital project that the bank is really pushing along with several partners and countries, it's really aiming to bring the cross-sectoral nature. And just to go back to President Salif Johnson, when she was in government, her Minister of Education mentioned that health needed the products from the education sector to be able to translate that into health workforce. Those linkages are important in terms of filling the gap, but also the economic opportunity that you create, and also the youth employment opportunity that the jobs that are provided through the health sector will fill. Beyond that, not only the service delivery element, we also need to think about the innovation and the entrepreneurship, because we are flattening. To get to the front lines, we need to think about not only the traditional jobs and service delivery, but also imbuing the need to innovate within the health workforce to deal with the challenges of the front lines.
I really love that word innovate, and people use it quite liberally. And I'm curious as to what you mean by that.
So what do I mean by innovate? So imagine a village in northeastern Nigeria or in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in the Sahel, where you have thousands of young women, young men who have not had the education that they needed and are not empowered. And the facilities aren't there, and yet have high fertility, high mortality, both in terms of mothers and children. How does the health worker co-opt local institutions to not only devise ways of reaching those communities with services that they need, but also to create businesses perhaps that can help deliver some complements in terms of service delivery in those hard-to-reach areas.
Is this hypothetical? Are you talking to me about something that's actually happening right now? I think it's important that we know this. Is this a thought in your head, possibilities, or is it actually happening?
I think if you go to the front lines,
yes,
you will see healthcare businesses in the front lines that, that are led by community health workers. I think there are examples of where this is happening. In Kenya, in Rwanda, where you can link the health service delivery element with the economic opportunity and job creation. as well. And there are examples of franchise models that actually are able to do that. Beyond the service delivery that needs to be provided, that there are also economic opportunities back to the value chain that I have mentioned. And there are empirical examples to really share in that regard.
All right, that's your way of thinking for innovation. Amboise, I know this was so important to you to talk about. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that from two different angles, and I agree very much with what Mohammed said. The first one is you can look at innovation also in the way projects are presented, financed. We are financing in Africa a project that is called Medical Credit Fund. This is a Dutch foundation, and they are implementing projects that are very interesting because they are promoting a number of private clinics in helping them to increase the quality of care that they are doing. And by doing that, they work with local banks. And that includes, in part, technical assistance through grants, but also first hospices that are provided by public institutions, and the crowding in the private sector. So you have all that is needed because we are in a period of scarce public budgetary resources. So we need.
I heard you had a lot of money.
We have a lot of money, but we are a bank.
Yes. But,
so
but your job is to
for getting
give
budget
that money
resources, you need to team up with others, with the European Commission, with our friends from the World Bank, with many institutions. And to leverage resources, you need to have the budgetary resources, the public loans, and the private sector crowding in. And in terms of having investors coming in, another innovation is that we have launched what we call the Sustainability Awareness Bonds. We were the first institution, the European Investment Bank, to launch what was called at that time, in 2007, a green bond, which was the Climate Awareness Bond. Now with the SDGs, we have launched the Sustainability Awareness Bonds last year to finance projects that are specifically targeting a number of SDGs. Last year we did that for water bonds, or for water projects. So you earmark, and for more and more investors, especially young investors, this is important to know what exactly is going to be funded with your projects. And this year, we have funded a bond that is financing explicitly health projects.
Pete, what's your question for Amboise? You look curious.
So my question is, how do we ensure that when we develop these new financial instruments that are critical to achieving UHC, that they will fund not just infrastructure, but they'll fund the costs required to pay health workforces as we expand them across sub-Saharan Africa in particular, where the gap is most acute? And how do we find the financing to cover both the hardware and the software?
Well, I have a part of the answer to the question, because Pete has the true question. He has part of the answer, and I think we all together with the governments, we need to find the answer to the question: how do we indeed fund projects that are going to have more and more of these the health workers be in place, and trying to fill the gap that he was mentioning too. I would add, it's not only to have the 18 million that are missing, it's also to train them so that in a very changing health environment, they are adapting and progressing with the kind of training of skills that are needed.
Saba, you can help us understand how an international NGO like Silatech, how it may work with international financial institutions. What would be your guide for that, for doing that? How do you do it?
Okay. مع أني كنت أحب أنا أكمل مثل اليمن، لأنه كان هو له صلة كبيرة بنقص القوى العاملة ووفيات السيدات، وكان سيخدم سؤالك يعني، وسوف أعيد له.
أوكي.
وسوف أعيد المثل، لأن كنت يعني من ضمن الأمثلة أن هناك الوفيات 520,000 امرأة حامل ذلك لنقص عدد الموظفين في الصحة. وهنا تكمن المشكلة في أن احنا لابد أن نحدد القضايا بإحصائيات جادة ونتائج شفافة حتى يكون للمانحين قدرة على تزويد هذه البرامج. أرجع للسؤال، احنا نتكلم عن تجربة صلاتك كمؤسسة تنموية تقوم على حشد التمويل. مبدئيا صلاتك عندنا معادلة أن لكل دولار تستثمره صلاتك لابد من المانحين أو الشركاء وضع ما لا يقل عن $3. فمن المهم جدا أن الشركاء يكون لهم نفس يعني يكون يحسون عندهم إحساس بأن المنظمة التنموية جادة في عملها. ومن المهم أيضا أن يكون نتائج البرامج تعلن بصراحة وشفافية حتى يتمكن المنظمات التنموية من جذب المزيد من الاهتمام والمزيد من التمويل. والأهم من ذلك أن احنا البرامج لما تقدم أشير إلى نقطة الابتكار والإبداع، وهذا شيء جدا مهم، لأن البرامج التقليدية المطروحة على المانحين لا تتقبلونها. يعني أصبحت التقبل المشاريع التقليدية قليل جدا. الكل يطمح إلى إيجاد برامج قليلة التكلفة كثيرة المخرجات، وأيضا تتعامل مع التكنولوجيا كوسيلة سريعة في الوصول إلى المستفيدين. فالمانحين أيا كان نوعهم، سواء قطاع خاص أو مانحين دوليين أو دول مانحة، تتطلب هذه الشروط. فمن المهم جدا يكون هناك تعاون بين الشركاء أيا كان نوعهم. ففي شركاء استراتيجيين، وهناك شركاء مانحين، وهناك شركاء تنفيذيين. التكامل بين هؤلاء الشركاء يجذب الكثير من التمويلات للمشاريع والبرامج التنموية.
Okay. So one of the things I want to do now is to open up, because we have so much expertise here in the audience. So what I'm going to do is, Caitlin, with the microphones, be bold, stand right in front of everybody, put the microphone up in the air. Amelia, where is your microphone? There you go. Where are the hands with the suggestions, the questions, the initiatives? Put them up. Very good. Thank you for starting us off. I appreciate that. There we go.
Should I start?
Do stand up. Tell us who
Yes.
you are. Hello. Good afternoon. It is live.
Good afternoon. My name is André Jacques Neuzy. I work with an organization called the NET, or Training for Health Equity Network. And my question to the panel is really related to what are you thought about developing a mechanism? What kind of mechanism do you have in mind, whether they are financially mostly, and processes to build an intersectorial and integrated platform for investment in health and education? The reason for my question is really linked to what the moderator was asking earlier. It's little personal history. Well, it is not necessarily a personal history, but our organization works with health professional institutions that really are committed to produce the health workforce where the needs are the greatest. Recently,
So can I ask you to just formulate your question into one sentence?
Yes, well,
it's beautiful. I love the way it's going.
Okay, we are going to spend too much time in arguing. I will tell you that very quickly.
Yes, what's
So the point being that actually we were in the DRC recently, where the epicenter of the Ebola epidemic is.
Yes.
There are two universities that really are there serving the region of Kivu. And in these universities, you have absolutely no reliable source of energy. You have actually major critical shortage of essential material to train the health professional. And we are speaking about education and skills. I didn't really hear much about that.
Okay.
But there is a great need for that.
All right, hold tight. Dr.
Yes.
Tedros, where are you? Dr. Tedros, where are you?
Well,
Dr. Tedros,
I
where
had
is he?
actually, Dr. Tedros,
Dr.
I had
come-
actually a very good.
Come and sit here. Sir,
Sure.
your question is over because we want to share them with some of the else. I see where you're going. Dr.
Yes,
Tedros, come and
thank
take
you.
a seat. Yeah, absolutely. Come and sit down. Your staff have told me to make you sit down. He doesn't want to answer the question.
He doesn't need to stand.
Okay.
No, he
doesn't need to leave. I
All
can
right.
speak from here.
All right, very good. All right, turn around. Can you address that?
You want me to address?
Address that, yes, please.
That's
Thank
a
you.
surprise.
All
Okay.
right.
So I.
Good afternoon.
Thank you,
Dr.
Pamela.
Tedros is the Director General of the World Health Organization. Thank you for joining us. Just as the tough questions start to come in, Dr. Tedros, can you respond to that? It was very long, but I think you understand where it was coming from. Go ahead.
Can I have some, maybe to rephrase the question, if you can help me?
You can do whatever you like.
Elaborate the question.
Yes, please do. Go
For
ahead.
me.
Yes.
Can you do that?
Oh, to rephrase the question?
Yes.
Oh, sir, what was your question? It was so long.
Okay, I think that we need to elaborate a question. You cannot say that in 3 minutes. Those are two important points. And it is nice to see you again, Dr. Tedros. We had the pleasure of meeting you when you were Minister of Health. The point being, my question is actually you need an intersectorial approach to education, creating jobs, skills. And I really would like to know actually what are the platform, the ideas, and what are the thoughts of the panel here of really how could you really start guiding these investment in a coherent, integrated fashion.
All right, I've got it now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Investment in a coherent fashion.
In a coherent one.
Integrated, not silos. Okay.
Exactly. No, as you know, the workforce is central to universal health coverage, and we cannot achieve universal health coverage without workforce. But there is a danger because we have a huge gap, 18 million. And one of the rules of the game will be working together, as our colleague said, and there should be cooperation and alignment. But when we talk about cooperation and alignment from WHO side, what we're doing is we have to work together to achieve the SDGs, in particular the UHC. And that's why we have developed the SDG action plan. And 12 agencies have come together to develop that action plan. And the World Bank is one, and many other UN agencies and financing organizations, because we need to work together to align on the major goals of UHC if we're really committed to achieve them. So workforce will be one of them, of course, because in UHC, as I said, it's central, but not because workforce is central, but we have a huge gap too. So because of this reason, we need...
Thank you so much. Do take a seat just there. We may be calling you on again. So thank you very much for that question. Sorry to rush you. But I wanted to get in many more responses to your question. Mohammed, this is a good, it's a really good question, i.e. how do we all work together? I'm hearing all of you separately talking back and forth, but how do you coordinate?
I think the human capital idea, focusing on it by definition, requires the integration of the sectors in terms of education. You cannot solve the 18 million gap just from looking at it from the existing numbers that would be still employed. The education sector needs to be part of that. And the investment that the bank, together with countries and other partners, will be putting on the table, it's within that framework. And like Dr. Tedros mentioned, for us to achieve the UHC targets, we need to have health systems that work, we need to have the human resources, and we need to have them in the front lines. And education sector would be a key part of that in terms of the pipeline for the health workforce to be trained, not only in the skills in health services, but also other elements in there for us to move forward and improve health outcomes.
All right, everyone's in agreement. Yes, who has the microphone next? Who's got the microphone? Stand up with the microphone. Okay, very good. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
It's on. We won't turn it off, I promise.
Je vais poser ma question en français. I can French.
You can, but then you would probably have to say it in English because we've got English-Arabic translation. French.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Because I speak French.
I'm sorry.
One quick
question. Are you going to speak in French?
Yes.
Okay. Who wants to translate from French into English? Who's on the microphone? Who wants to do that for me?
Doctor, translate.
All right. Hold that thought. Next question.
No, let me actually call it in French. In English.
Do it in English. Go ahead.
English, French.
All right. This is very challenging. I love this Q&A. Very
Okay.
stimulating.
Yes.
Going so smoothly.
Quel impact y a-t-il par rapport à l'éducation et l'emploi vis-à-vis des personnes
You're going to do it in
handicapées.
French. I need someone to do the
Yes.
translation in English. Hold
can
tight.
translate
Take a
this call.
pause. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry to. Okay.
I'll come back to you, sir. I've got a translation for you, sir. Hold 1 second. I will.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
So I can translate if you need. I'm sorry to.
No, it's. Ambroise says he's going to translate, so that's fine. Ambroise,
Okay,
go
that's
ahead
fine.
for us. Thank you. Multi-talented. Okay, back to the question of Fossé. Merci, monsieur. Go ahead.
OK. Ma question est suivante. Quel est le mécanisme d'intégration des personnes handicapées dans l'investissement de l'éducation et de la santé, cas de la RDC par rapport à l'Ebola? Les personnes handicapées et la communication n'est pas accessible pour cette catégorie de personnes pour accéder aux soins de santé. Merci.
I'll translate the question because this is not a question for me. The question was the access of information for disabled people. And for example, he gave the example of Ebola, that disabled people don't have access to information. What is the mechanism that can give this kind of access?
Okay. Pete, are we getting slightly off topic here, do you feel? Because I know the WHO is very deeply involved in Ebola, particularly in the DRC, but that is not necessarily connecting here, unless you can connect the dots for me. Mohammed, Pete, who wants to connect the dots?
After Pete.
Yeah, no, I mean, the dots and disabled are one element that of the population that certainly needs access to all information. But the bigger dot here is that when we look at countries like DRC, they are the prototype of what Dr. Tedros talks about, which is health emergencies and UHC being the twin sides of the same coin. Because the reason why we are slow to pick up new outbreaks, the reason why it becomes much more complicated to respond in countries like DRC is because we don't have that primary healthcare workforce and infrastructure. And so it's one of the best current examples of why we need to invest now in the health workforce at rural decentralized level, as well as the broader primary healthcare system. It's the prototype of a country also that won't be able to do it on its own. We will be saying on Monday that the majority of countries actually can achieve UHC on their own financially and technically, if they make the right policy and political choices. But for the fragile states, for countries affected by conflict, they will need international solidarity, financing, and technical assistance. And there's no better example than DRC.
All right. Let's take another question.
Hello, Remco van der Pas from Medicus Mundi International Network Health for All. Thank you. It's wonderful to hear that there's now social investment in the workforce and that also the development banks support that. My question is related to that. What can we learn from the past, given that there has been also constraints in expanding public investments, and evidence showed that part of the reason why there are many weak health systems in low-income countries is because of constraints that were put forward in the past. How to deal with them? If we really want to innovate and invest, what can we learn then? And also, how can we ensure that there is space and there's maybe innovative, more heterodox economic incentives for countries to be flexible in pursuing this agenda?
Mohammed, may I give this to you?
Yes, I think earlier Pete mentioned the IMF social sector strategy. Really, the IMF and the World Bank and all of us in the multilateral environment are trying to sort of come together around countries to enter dialogue that will take into account those needs in the context of spending plans for countries. And the social sector spending is key to growth, and limiting it in the context of fiscal policies is to some extent counterproductive. And so it needs the dialogue across the institutions that are mandated. So IMF, World Bank, WHO and others, at least around country commitments, will have to work together to be able to address that. That will be key. It's a long-term conversation, but that we'll have to do it together and with the countries.
Dr. Jamila Mahmood, would you stand up? Dr. Jamila Mahmood is the Undersecretary General of the Red Cross. Would you stand up, please? Thank you. And a microphone, come instantly, it's flying into her hands. Thank you. You feel we've left something out. We've left many things out, but there's something you wanted to add. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you very much for 18 million. I'll never forget that number now, but I want you to remember another number, 14 million. And that's 14 million Red Cross and Red Crescent volunteers around the world who are working in all the countries who are in this room. Now, we talk about community health workers and frontline workers, but they're also frontline volunteers and community health volunteers. And if you talk about evidence, the evidence from the West African Ebola is that it was the work of volunteers who carried out safe and dignified burials of Ebola victims that prevented the death of more than 10,000 people. And this is reported in the Lancet. So what I'm saying is that we all need to connect the dots. So investing in their skills, in the interim that you don't have this 18 million, you have 14 million auxiliary to governments who have to be invested in, who are there when no one is there, where the last mile is the first mile for the Red Cross and the Red Crescent. And we thank all the governments here for supporting your own national societies.
Panel, I want you to be thinking about this because we really want to get value from you. What is your concrete example or suggestion or rallying cry for the people gathered here, for us to go beyond this room to think about in terms of how we achieve this bigger health workforce? You come from different perspectives. I want you to be very candid. Have a think about that, and I will surprise Dr. Tedros one more time and say, Dr. Tedros, come and stand here for us, please. Thank you. Can everybody see Dr. Tedros if he stands in front of the stage? Can you see him? Yes, very good. Like here, in the light. Be like a TV anchor and stand right there in the light. There we go. A little bit further, across here. Very good, very good. It's a doctor who doesn't take instructions well, like most doctors. All right. Dr. Tedros, I know that you have many, many things to do over this next week, and particularly over today. You literally flew in to be here with us. What do you want to leave us with, Dr. Tedros? Go ahead.
So could be the jet lag. I'm feeling a bit. I'm coming straight from the airport. Yeah, I think I have some things to say. Mm-hmm. When I get opportunities, of course, I use them. So I will just start from what I said earlier. For us, as WHO, and now for the global community, the global health community, we say all roads lead to universal health coverage. As you know, half of the world population doesn't have access to essential health services. And 100 million people annually get into poverty because of out-of-pocket payment. This is a tragedy. And this has to be addressed. And if we're going to address it, then it means we have to walk the talk, meaning honoring the pledge of achieving UHC by 2030. And as I said earlier, central to UHC is the workforce. And without the workforce, which is the most important element of UHC, we cannot achieve UHC. And with the current gap of 18 million gaps, it shows that there is a serious problem which has to be tackled. And to address this problem, there should be solutions. And one is we have to train more, and also we have to retain them. When we say train, we need to train with speed, and the volume we train should be big enough to fill the gap, and of course, the quality should be there. So these are important elements. But to do this, we need to have innovative models, and our colleagues were saying that. We cannot do the same type of training and get the necessary speed and volume and quality to achieve the 18 million. So there should be innovative ways of training the workforce. And that's why we have identified some best practices from different countries, and we're sharing those with countries and using these innovative models, we can achieve the 18 million. And the other important element here is, it was already raised, coordination is important of all actors. And that's why I raised the global action plan. All actors globally should work to achieve UHC, but within that, to address the workforce, the 18 million. And we have already signed with some of the professional associations who normally focus on continued professional development to move into generic training and be major players in filling the gap of the 18 billion. So the coordination and cooperation is important. When I say this, not only the institutions I said, but financiers like the World Bank and others, and including the private sector, should take part in here. Then the most important coordination, though, is at country level. It's a multi-sectoral approach that can help us to achieve the target of training the 18 million. And whatever we say, the global coordination should be there to support or enhance the country level coordination and help them based on their priorities countries, because result cannot be achieved unless we focus at country level and empower countries. The ownership should be countries and help them based on their priorities. So that's what I would like to add to the discussion, but I would like to use this opportunity to thank the ministers attending here, and especially to Her Excellency President Sirleaf, our Goodwill Ambassador for Health Workforce. With her and my colleagues here, Pete and Jim, we're saying every single day, 18 million, 18 million, 18 million, 18 million until we get there. We believe that it's a daily business, something that should be part of our plan. And in order to achieve it, it has to be not only in our prayers every day, but in our actions too. But the 18 million is achievable if we bring our acts together. And thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your service and for your guidance and leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tejas. Beautifully done. Take a seat.
So I'm released now?
Take a seat.
I'm not released?
Okay, if you have to go. Where's more important than being with these wonderful people? I am going to ask you, Mohammed, in a sentence, what is your concrete takeaway for this gathering here?
We need to reimagine primary health care. We need to innovate in that reimagination, how health workforce technology comes together, how we finance, how we work across sectors, and how we work amongst ourselves. And I think that's the way forward for us.
The same. I think we need to align and to have the project promoters, the financiers, the authorities work together. My hope is that digital will help partly fill the gap.
Saba, in a sentence, your concrete takeaway for this gathering is what?
لن أزيد على زملائي، ولكن أعتقد الاستجابة الفعالة والمرونة الكافية بحيث أن يتم تكييف البرامج وفق الدولة ومعطياتها، ولا تكون هناك برامج مصممة وتم تكرارها.
My takeaway is that, certainly for the first time I can remember, on a critical issue in global health, we have WHO, the World Bank, IMF, financiers, all absolutely with the same consensus that health is a benefit in itself, but it's also an economic benefit. And in that is a huge opportunity now for us to translate the advocacy around 18 million into real action with financial instruments.
Let me add one thing, please. One thing. Small sentence, please. If you, I am teacher like you, don't forget this one. أنا بس نقطة جملة أخيرة. نحن يعني نشد على أزر WHO في هذه القضية ونتعاون معهم، ولا أعتقد أحد من الحاضرين يتخيل نفسه مريضا يوما ما ولا يوجد طبيب يعالجه.
Saba, thank you. I never believe you when you say you have a small sentence for me, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, I know there are many more questions in the room, which is why we have a reception. Because much better than me making you summarize your question and get to the point is being outside on the balcony on a beautiful September afternoon where you can have a one-on-one conversation with Silatech, with the World Bank, with the WHO, or with the European Investment Bank. One-on-one conversations, that is where the real business and the work takes place. So do join us outside on the balcony. But for now, I will say that this event was brought to you by Qatar, Silatech, and the World Health Organization, and of course, your good selves. Please give yourself a round of applause. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon.